We've all heard about misinformation and deep fakes, but what if that is just the tip of the iceberg? Generative AI is already transforming Canadian political discourse, making it harder than ever to discern truth from fiction. We'll uncover how these powerful tools are influencing public opinion and what it means for our democracy. Plus, we have got to talk about Mark Carney's big announcement to combat tariffs and how he plans to support what he calls Canada's strategic industries. Welcome to Spin Nation. We are the podcast that slices through the noise to reveal the forces shaping Canadian perspectives. I am Laurel. I am your co-host. And of course, always joining me is Emmanuel. Hi, Emmanuel. How are you doing today?
Good morning, lovely Laurel.
I do like that. Every week is a lovely Laurel week. So we've got some pretty heavy stuff to talk about today. But before we get into the AI discussion, Mark Carney rolled out what would seem to be kind of his big plan and how he's going to transform our economy, at least get us through this tough time with tariffs. But it seemed to kind of be a bit of a dud.
That was a beast of a presser. I've rarely seen so much information disgorged into such a short period of time.
Yeah, it was. I read the press release. It was dense, and then it had a backgrounder, which was also dense. I wanted to see how Canadians are responding because this is the plan, but it was like thud. Like no one was talking about it very much. Why do you think that happened? The traditional media covered it, but I expected everybody to be unpacking it on all the socials, but I didn't see it happening.
Yeah, I got to say, it did not get a very good response online. One of my go-tos in terms of understanding the machinations of politics is The Curse of Politics. And the title of their episode this week was F-comms. And they spent an hour essentially dissecting how terrible the strategy and the setup of this comms, of this presser was. And I agree with it. There's just so much information to digest, and it's a very policy focused format, and it's hard for everyone, regular Canadian, or even people in the news like us that listen to the news a lot, to figure out where and what that was. Just so much information.
Let's see what comes next. But right now, I think I agree with the Curse of Politics, giving them a pretty low grade on the comms so far.
So I think the big fail, communication fail on the government's part. Like I'm not talking about the policy. The policy might be well thought through and all of that, but you're just not doing the first job of government, which is communicating your intentions.
Absolutely. So here at Spin Nation, we think they're missing the spin.
Not enough spin.
Not enough spin. Okay, well, let's talk about, which I think is really interesting, the role of generative AI in shaping public opinion, how it's impacting the discourse. Can you kick us off, Emmanuel? What is the data point of the week?
So the data point of the week is from a report from an organization called DFR Lab, which identified 42 AI-generated YouTube channels that were posing as Canadian news sources. They looked at 3 videos. Mark Carney tears up as Governor General makes shocking rule on elections results. So 3 videos along this line. The most viewed of these videos received 220,000 views. And just to give you a point of reference, if this channel, or at least this video, had been competing against Canadians' largest independent voices on YouTube, it would have come in at 19th position. So you take 42 videos like this and you combine them together, and they become more influential than the most influential independent voice, Canadian voice, on YouTube.
So that's pretty startling. So if I understand what you're saying correctly, like the one video on its own made the sort of top 20 influential videos, but because there wasn't just one video, there was multiple videos, you're saying that it would challenge even some of our most influential YouTubers out there?
That's right. The
Wow.
largest YouTuber, Canadian YouTuber, independent voice, is Loose on the Moose, and he gets somewhere
Loose on the moose?
Loose on the Moose. And depending on the week, he's going to get about 1 million to 2 million views for his content. So, 220,000 views for a single video times 42 videos. That's probably, 2 to 3 times his reach.
So the key takeaway here is these are not tiny little accounts that no one's seeing or paying attention to. They are penetrating uh, pretty deeply into what Canadians are watching.
Absolutely. And they always occur at pivotal moments of Canadian, politics and culture. So for sure, they're intended to either take advantage of the buzz for financial reasons, or, and this is more nefarious, try to change the Canadian conversation against the Canadians' wills.
Okay, well, let's take a step back because so we've established that these fake AI generated content is actually being seen. It's not just people aren't paying attention to it. It is getting paid attention to. But let's step up a little bit and move back and talk a bit about what is the difference, right? So AI is being and generative AI is out there, and people are using it in all kinds of different ways to create content. We do use it ourselves here at Spin Nation as well, in terms of helping us write or helping us put together images. It's used quite commonly across the board within Canadian companies. Regular Canadians are using it. So what's the problem, right? So I think we need to establish what's the issue and how is this either a positive for influencing the discourse, but also the negative for influencing the discourse.
I think one thing that's important to realize right now is everybody knows there's a major shift in trust in media and in how media is being consumed. I think you have collected some numbers from University of Ottawa. Can you walk us through some of those changing habits of Canadians when it comes to media?
Yeah, this comes out of their Polycom Tech Lab, and they found that 33% of Canadians trust influencers, somewhat or a lot, for policy insight. And that is higher than traditional journalists, is 28%. This goes even larger when you look at the younger cohort. So those 18 to 34 goes as high as 45%. So that's quite a large amount of Canadians who are not looking to traditional media to understand what's happening in Canadian government and policy. They're looking to these independent influencers. And so then the question is, okay, if they are, and that, which is fine. They say we have found that we don't believe or trust or understand what traditional media is suggesting to us or telling us. We're looking to other voices. The question is then how do we know that what those other voices is saying is correct?
That's right. And I think this is really interesting. It actually reflects, for those of you who know us, we spent 5 years in China, right in the middle of the rise of WeChat as a major communication channel. And I think we had a similar, or at least the situation had some parallels. There was a high distrust of some of the official news sources and media as perceived as really speaking for the Chinese government. And what happened is we saw a very rapid shift between 2015 and 2020, where influencers gained incredible power in and influence in China. So the whole ecosystem changed in the course of 5 years to become influencer driven. And I think we're seeing the same thing happening here in Canada and then Western democracies, whether it's Europe or the United States.
Right. And just to be clear, we're not suggesting that a lot of these major Canadian influencers talking news and politics and policy are using generative AI in a nefarious way. What we're saying is that Canadians are looking to a very different group of voices who are now communicating to them.
That's right. What I'm highlighting here is that there's a change of trust. And as you can see from these statistics, there's a whole group of Canadians that don't look at incumbent media. And the younger generation is favoring the emerging channels such as YouTube as their primary source of news. So this is what I'm highlighting: is this change in preference and source of trust. But this comes at a certain price. On the one hand, a lot of these new influencers are not experienced journalists for now, so their sources of information can come from anywhere. And as they build their experience, they can be easily led by sources of information which you probably shouldn't trust. So this is one problem. The other problem is the algorithm. So you're getting thrown on your YouTube feed, you're getting thrown a mix of sources. Some of them are these emerging voices that we know are real Canadians, and some of them are these channels which nobody knows where it's coming from, and nobody knows what their purpose is.
And I guess that example, when you're talking, when we first kicked off this segment, was the fact that these 42 YouTube channels that were fake Canadian news sources. But the thing is, they are emulating the look of whether it is an established Canadian. It makes it that much easier for the nefarious use of Gen AI to create all this fake content to fit themselves in amongst the real and the credible and the up and coming and the independent. And I think that is kind of an important context for people to understand that the role of Gen AI within this new realm is that it makes it so quick and easy to create, SEO optimize, cool visuals, articles, super fast, pump them out. And so you can get your inbox and your streams and your feeds flooded with these manufactured news stories.
That's right. And then because, there's sort of a herd effect, and it's like, oh, I've seen this 5 times, it must be true. Or if, proven influencer takes that content, doesn't review it and vet it properly and starts redistributing it because it's convenient or because it fits their narrative without, digging deeper into, is it true? Then suddenly it gets a second life being recycled into the established Canadian influencer circle. So that's the danger, and that's the corrosive nature of these mysterious AI channels that produce content for purposes unknown.
So let me ask you a question. How hard is it to understand or assess? Because it happens all the time. You're scrolling your shorts or your YouTubes, you're a TikTok or whatever, and you see stuff pop up. How easy is it to assess if a channel is real or not real? Do you have any tools that you look at or what you check for?
Well, so this is a very difficult question to answer. A couple of years ago, like you say, you looked at it and very briefly, and you could kind of say it just as a human being that this was fake after thinking a little bit. But let's take the example in late July here in Canada. We had an image of a Sikh man who was allegedly urinating in a cup on a beach. It created a social media panic.
Gas station. That was a gas station.
Gas station, right. And the post came from X. And, people reached out even to the gas station owner to confirm it was not a real story. Now, the Washington Post, who covered this story, put this image through one of those AI deepfake filter tools that you have on the internet. And actually, the deepfake detector was not able to, or said that this was a real image. So they went through a second round, and then they asked an expert in digital forensics to look at the image, and the expert was able to pull together some evidence to show that it was AI generated. So the tools are not as effective as they used to be, the automated tools. So you actually need at this point in time to go to experts that will look, deep down at pixel by pixel and the movement through the image and do a deep analysis to be able to judge these things. So almost impossible for a regular human to sort this out.
And it seems to me, why was this video created? So it was used as a proof point to rile people up who were, anti-immigrant or and people who are anti-Indian, which we've seen. So this is where these fake Gen AI images can really, disrupt the public discourse and insert itself in and push people into a narrative that is divisive and polarizing.
That's right. I mean, it is a good thing that Canada has adult conversation on immigration. There's certainly issues that need to be sorted out. But when some unknown third party throws fuel in the fire, we don't know what their purpose is except to incense everybody. So this is a deep concern because we need to talk policy, but we need to do it between Canadians and using facts and figures that are that should be trusted.
No, so these are obviously the bad sides and how it influences public opinion. What's the good? I mean, there's got to be positives to the availability of Gen AI and these tools to create images and videos and text and content. Like, what do you see as the positive uses of it?
Well, it does make it easier for everyday citizen journalists to put their content out there. And I think this is actually, in some sense, the cure to some of the ails of AI is getting more people that you engage with, that you trust because you've listened to their podcast or you've seen them on 2-hour interviews, and you're able to build a deeper sense of what their values, their experience, and their ability to communicate. So you're able to build a more personal relationship with these influencers. And so getting that AI is great at making that journey a lot simpler. Laurel, you're the one that has been developing sort of the technical side of our podcast. Maybe you can talk a little bit about how it's used in the various process steps of the process.
Well, sure. I don't use it to come up with our scripts because I do want to make sure that the content that we're using is unique to us, but I will leverage it as a research tool. So it helped, for example, we were talking about this DFRS lab, and I mean, it helped me discover that. I don't know if Google would have helped me discover that on its own. And I have used it in the past for our website for image generation. So, instead of having to pay a graphic designer to do art, obviously we use AI to do the art that we use. So it's been a great way to keep costs down for us. I will add also that while Gen AI is used to push these sometimes divisive narratives, it's also Gen AI that is being used as a tool to counteract them, at least on X, because Grok is the go-to and really has become a go-to tool for X users. Anytime images come out, videos are coming out, articles will come out, it is super common to see people ask Grok to verify, is this real? Is there any other evidence supporting this story or this image? And Grok does then help to correct records where it has the information. So it's Gen AI giveth and taketh, let's say.
That's right. So it's made the life easier for everyday journalists. It's also made the life of propagandists, whether they're from Russia, China, India, United States. Everybody's doing it nowadays. It's made everybody's life easier and created this chaos of information, which becomes so hard to parse if you're not paying attention. Yeah, and we know for a fact that these campaigns are occurring. There is a story around allegations of an organization called Tenet Media. And so the allegations are, or it's being investigated for receiving large amounts of money from Russian sources and paying up to $400,000 per video for some high ranking US and Canadian influencers to essentially recycle some of the talking points from Russia. So if we know that one company has been caught, how many others are out there operating without anyone's knowledge right now?
Yeah, I do. I mean, this is alleged. We're talking about Tenet Media is alleged still, right? But I know Northern Perspective, which is quite a popular YouTube and X channel, they said they were approached. And they went public to say we've been approached to push messages as well. I'm pretty sure it was Northern Perspective who said that. So, needless to say, this is out there. Who's behind it? There's foreign governments that have potentially malicious intent. Those US based AI super companies, we talked about Grok and we've talked about this in previous episodes. My experience with Grok is it does go to great efforts to provide, or at least give the impression that it is providing a very balanced and unbiased response. Grok did freak out at one point during the summer, I think it was, where someone had meddled with its code and it was dropping anti-Semitism and Hitler and being pretty racist. So it that was, as you said at the time, was an obvious finger, like thumb on the scale. But if there is a subtle thumb on the scale, we won't necessarily know. And so people looking to Grok for honest answers, their opinions could be influenced in the wrong direction.
Right. And I think this is something that we as a nation need to be aware of, and I think we as a nation need to start actively to make sure that our Canadian narrative is a reflection of real Canadians' opinions, not foreign influence.
So let's wrap up with our so what. Let me pose the so what to you in a question, Emmanuel. And you don't know I'm going to ask you this question, so let's see what you think. Do we need to regulate it? Is that the solution here? And if so, is that even possible?
Well, I think we need a attack plan in three different layers. The first one is we need to clearly identify all of the content and its country of origin. So that, if you're an influencer, you show you're Canadian, and this gets verified by the channel. Second, I think all Canadian influencers need to make it clear that they're not receiving outside money or other means of support. So, one thing that we're seeing a lot of lately is influencers suddenly gaining massive amounts of followers uh, through means that are clearly artificial. So it's not just because they're good, it's suddenly boom, 1 million followers in the course of a few weeks. So I think that also needs to be flagged. And then lastly, a registry, just the same way that we register lobbyists, we register foreign diplomats. Canadian influencers receiving influence that way need to advertise and show that they've received that money from third parties, and this needs to be registered in some form or fashion.
And I guess they could use a framework like they do in the advertising agency, right? Like if an influencer is promoting a product, and they're getting paid to do it, they have to make that public and say this is an ad, and they have, or sponsored by. That is a legal requirement, I believe. Otherwise, it's false advertising. So maybe there are some learnings that can be taken from that industry and applied here.
My fourth point for conversation and discussion is I think Canada needs to go into active counter propaganda and identify and target these sources of foreign influence and expose them.
I just read an article that Canada wasn't part of it, but the US was working with some other countries on an active kind of anti-propaganda, anti-foreign propaganda program, but the US has now pulled out of it. I don't have the name in front of me, so it almost feels like the world is going backwards on this point when it actually needs to be going forwards.
Yes, I find that news very disturbing.
But bringing it to Canada, we were not part of that, is my understanding. Seemed to be a few little labs, like the DFR lab that we were talking about at U of Ottawa. Here and there are after the fact reporting and flagging things for YouTube to say this is fake or that is fake. But this does not feel like there is a concerted, proactive effort in Canada. So everyone has to protect themselves, question everything, which isn't necessarily good
Question
either.
everything. Beware when it makes you angry. If it's on purpose, there's a good chance that it's not. It's content that you should question at the very least. And my last point is we need to build more Canadian voices that will investigate all of these stories, that will really bring together the Canadian viewpoint and defend ourselves against that influence.
All right. Well, on that note, let us wrap here. Thank you as always. This is a big topic, one I'm sure we'll have to revisit in the future as the AIs and Gen AIs become even more sophisticated and it becomes even harder. So everyone just has to be on their guard. And unfortunately, we're in a space right now where we've got to be vigilant. So, with that, thank you as always, dear husband, and thank you to our listeners. See you next time.
Until next time.